La dee da dee da. Dum dum sling dang doo. 11:09. 11:09. And we're here. God bless it. And this has lots of Eric. I did have a rather lovely morning, though. Had a couple of conference calls. Just got off with my very good friend, Michael Stucker. We've just got to figure this out, Eric. We want him to be the engineer in residence. And when I say engineer, I mean electronics engineer. So let us do that. Eric, you have Stucker's email, don't you? I believe so. Okay, so Eric is Michael Stucker. Hi, everybody. I'll do the quick hellos in a second, just while this is fresh on my mind. So he's a professor at Indiana University. He was is an engineer, a proper engineer, recording engineer, I should say. He used to run and maintain Echo Park Studios in Indiana, in Bloomington, Indiana. And he's made John Mellencamp records. He's made tons and tons of albums. He's super talented. Really, really good guy. But apart from that, he's a freaking electronics genius. He put this whole SSL together, recapped it, did the same thing for my Neve 8058, is building pedals with me, designed with me, and built the 1173. The guy is insanely smart. So he's agreed to be our resident electronics engineer for a month in the forum inside of the Academy. So we'll set up a forum, Eric. Set up a forum, and we'll give Michael, credentials, and he'll come in, and you can leave him questions. So if you could set that up maybe today, and you can start leaving questions for 1 month, and he'll come in there like every couple of days and sift through questions. And so you can ask questions like, about transformers, like pieces of equipment that you have that you think might be able to be improved, things that have gone wrong, is there any simple fixes? Just like electronic-y, nerdy, geeky stuff about studio gear. He's very, very smart and very passionate about that stuff, and just a genuinely great guy. So he's going to be our guy in residence for the month, our electronics engineer in residence. And Eric is going to create that forum. Anyway, so I was doing all of that while Eric was getting set up. Okay. Johnny says volume seems really low.
It's up now. I've got the master over on mine.
Eric says it's up now. Oh, the latency is set really bad again. I might have to change the latency in the middle of the mix, depending. Depending on how many plugins we get. We'll see. What's going to be really interesting is I listened to this song last night with Eric, like off of Spotify, to choose which one of the three. Now, we'd already done one of these in the Academy, one of London's other songs. And there's three, and this seems like the other song that I would do of the three. But I just sat down, and I have not messed with this. The last time I worked on this song was like 3 or 4 years ago when we recorded and mixed it. So we're all looking at exactly the same thing. Some of you may have already started mixing, it's going to be very interesting and very exciting. So I am going to listen to the mix that I did from about 3 or 4 years ago, and then I'm going to listen to the raw tracks. And it's been so long, and I've worked on so many, definitely hundreds, potentially thousands of songs since this, that this is like starting all over again. I'm looking at it going, oh, I see harmonies, and I'm thinking to myself, are those real? Did I build them? I see all the effects that I've created. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I know my Echoplex blew up recently-ish within the last year, and we haven't had it fixed yet. We've got to fix our Echoplex, Eric. And so this is probably original Echoplex. So that's the tape delay. I'm also looking at it, and I'm seeing some string stuff. I'm trying to remember if I did that in Logic or whether Steve did some stuff, or maybe the guy we used on Aerosmith, Dan Coe. Maybe Dan Coe did these. I don't remember. It's going to be a real... So it's got DI and bass amp, so that would have been my old bass amp that I used to have. Yeah, there's lots of fun things in here. That tambourine, wow, look at that. That's definitely live. That's definitely me. It's like square weight off. Let's have a look. It's not digital. Oh yeah, that's crunched to all within the heck of its life. So it's funny going back and hearing this stuff. Now, as far as the drums are concerned, I probably I don't remember. I do not remember. It's a mono room, so it must be. I don't think it was harmony. I think it was here. So it's only one room mic, so it was probably here. We've already we overlaid some samples here. We separated out of the toms. There is no rack tom, so I don't know why it's even on, but that is what it is. Yeah, it's a pretty dynamic performance. And there was no samples in this originally? Eric?
There were lots of samples, not the addictive samples, more of your pure kick and your gotta have it kick.
And we didn't keep all those in?
No, but I can bring them in.
But do they have them?
No.
Okay, then if you guys don't have the samples, then nor do I. I would have left them in, but...
This session you see right here is exactly what they have.
So yeah, all right, we all have exactly the same thing. Okay, good. Well, this will be interesting. So let's mix this with no samples. Let's mix this with no samples and only go to a sample if necessary. This is good. Great. Do I still have the Ashdown bass amp? I believe we do. Where is it? Do we still have the Ashdown? The old bass amp. Do we still have the old bass amp?
Oh yeah. We still have it.
We still have it. It just was cutting in and out randomly. And we took it to get it fixed once, and it seemed to be fine for a couple of months, and then it started cutting in and out again. And we had got it so cheap. Now, what do we have now?
And now, I actually don't know the model, but we got it also used.
What make is it? We don't even remember what we have. Oh, yeah, we got the little Ampeg, yeah. We got the little Ampeg. It's mic'd up, and I haven't moved it since I set it up. It is what it is. Bootstraps, what a great band. Thank you ever so much, Ching, for the coffee. So this is going to be a fun. We're going to do a couple of hours of this. Hopefully you can all stick it out with me. See what we can come up with in the next couple of hours. Sorry for the noise here. Just cleaning off this pop screen. So this should be a fun couple of hours. I don't know if you've only got some stuck in yet. Yeah, we're just going to do it without samples. I mean, it might, maybe at the end we'll be like, oh, I wish we could add a sample, but, you know, and, oh yeah, Lisa says that, Eric, you need your own mic. That's a good idea. That's actually a really good idea. Then we need like a split screen, and then it can be like, Eric, and then you just see a photo of the hair. It's just pretty perfect today, actually.
Oh, thank you.
Was that why you were late? That's why you were late. That's why he was late, yeah. I didn't do anything to my hair this morning. Go figure. What a surprise. Warren woke up, had a shave, you know, did all the stuff you're supposed to do in the morning, but did not spend any time on his hair. Go figure. You never would have guessed, would you? Eric, on the other hand. Eric and I have shared many hotel rooms while we've been in Germany, Austria, France. Oh, no, you weren't with me in France, but... all the other countries that we've been together and worked in, and New York, LA. Oh no, did you stay with me in Anaheim? But anyway, we've shared many hotel rooms, and I can say that most of Eric's time in the bathroom is preparing his hair. You hear him go in, and you hear maybe the shower run for a second, then you hear. I remember when. He couldn't remember what his bag looked like the first time he flew, because he's not he's only just 26 now. So the first time you flew, what were you, 21, 22?
Yeah.
It's like 21, 22, and I don't know where we went when he flew. Memphis?
Nashville.
Oh, Nashville. So Nashville was the first time that he flew to Nashville. And his bag, like all the bags are coming off the conveyor belt, and he's like, I don't remember what my bag is. I was like, why not? He's like, well, because I never used it. You know, I've never used my bag before. So I was like, is it black? He goes, I think it's black. And he goes, it's like big. And so like all these huge black bags come off. And he's like, I think it's that one. So he pulls it off. Firstly, you could probably guess it was his because it was like almost empty. It was just this huge bag. But the first thing he did is he went to like this big front pocket, opened it, and pulled out this enormous hairdryer. I think it was red, wasn't it? Yeah, it's red. Like this, it's so vivid. It's like 4 years ago. This huge red hairdryer. He's like, yeah, this is my bag. So the hair precedes him. Okay, so who have we got on here? Hey Chaz, hey Tom, hey Dave, hey David, Michael, Lisa, Hit the Road Music Studio, Sheila, Anita, Joe. Thank you for the lovely email yesterday, Joe. I appreciate it. Skulls Metal, Meep, hey Meep. Chris, hey Chris Ibbotson, Doug Pinkney, Steve Waters, Scott. Hey Scott. I'm trying to make sure I don't miss anybody else. Nate. Yes, I would make him proud, Nate. Matty, how are you? Scrolling back. Matthew Sweet. Hello. This is going to be fun. Absolutely fun. Mark Becker. Hey, Darren Ross. Hey, Troy. Hey, Jacob. John, how are you? And John gave me a little kick to remind me last week that Black Sabbath's first album was coming out. Sorry, not it was coming out, that it had come out 50 years ago. So thanks for that little kick. I think I was aware of it and made a note of it, but like all best laid plans of mice and men, it's always good to have a little reminder, so I appreciate that. Alex from Common Time Production. Hello. Have Kevin. Hardwire Spears. Hardwire Spears says that they wish they could have hair to fuss over. And hey, Austin. All right, let's get started. So we're going to listen to the hybrid mix. I suppose what our challenge really is to listen to the hybrid mix and then see, excuse me, without the use of samples, whether we can actually get something better. Now we have our meter here just for LUFS, just to make sure we're not hitting, because YouTube, as you know, is not very forgiving with hot signals. And, you know, we've had many people, you know, like for instance, I'm talking about my voice here. I'm going to bring my voice down, Eric, a couple of dB. You will have to turn it up a little bit just because we're hitting it. So just bring it 11111. I'm still slightly over. Ay. I don't want to. Not that it matters so much on my voice if it distorts, but we don't really want that. Which pre are we coming in? 1028. I'm bringing the 1028 down. 1, 2, 2, 2. 1, 1, 1. All right, it's barely peaking now. That's much better. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 2, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 2, 2, 2. Keep going. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's better. Okay. It's a little bit more even, little less distorted. Not that it probably matters quite so much on my voice. 1, 2, 2, 2, 2. 1, 1, 1. Okay. But we are using our WLM meter here. Again. Oh, I cut out there for a second. Hey. 1, 2, 2, 2, 2. 1. Okay. This should be fun. So I'm listening now, or we are listening now, to the hybrid mix through the console in Pro Tools. And we're going to try and beat it with the use of no drum samples. Should be interesting. Unless we have to. No drum samples. Here we go.
Can't forget our past love. Can't live regretting it all. Our mistakes weren't worth the making. I couldn't help myself in love. I've been bound to fall. It's the darkness that hurts the most. It's the lonely that chills my bones, and it's the scars that hide the truth. But
now. It's like it definitely is like a Bond theme. I was actually expecting it to go somewhere else there because it's been so long since I've heard the song. I was like, what happens now? And then I'm like, oh, that's where it finishes. Which is all rather Eric von Derrickson. All the cables are all plugged in the front here. Yeah, so all I did was move my foot 1 inch and it got unplugged. It's
Yeah, we don't have space for them in the back.
why? What's it plugged in on the back?
We have our dongle for Pro Tools. We have.
Why don't we put the dongle from the Pro Tools in the front rather than because? Okay, so yeah, I'm not going to be able to work like this.
I know it's a tough one because just every USB slot is being used.
Well, we can get
an
extension thing. We can get all kinds of different things that don't have the cables in front of the chair.
Yeah.
All right, this is going to be. I have to sit back from the thing because all the cables are dangling out the front. Very professional today. Very professional. Okay, so. All right, trying to get back to the focus here. This is the ultimate starting late, disorganized thing. Okay. The first thing I'm going to do is listen to the raw tracks. I'm probably going to go back and listen to that quote-unquote rough quite a lot. What I normally would do, frankly, and I'm going to do because I'm not going to change any of my process, is just create a drum group like this. So I have to sort of like be able to move around quickly. So with me in Pro Tools, I know if I hold the control down on the keyboard, I can solo outside of group. So I'm not sure what DAWs you use, but the reality is like that's the way it works for me. Is I like to do, I like to group everything and then be able to solo in and out of it. So this this group is called Drums All. So now what I can do is just go to the drums like this, do some really, really basic stuff. Like there is no rack tom. If there was, it would be 20%-ish on the other side. I personally always mix from audience perspective. And then put my hi-hat about 60% the other way. Overheads are already left and right panned. Crashes. I'm going to have to make a decision. If we have a listen to the overheads here. So that's an overdubbed overhead. Overdubbed cymbal, sorry. It's a lot like ringier and jazzier than that's the one that's in. And then there's a high one here by the looks of it. I'm going to bring it down before I even listen. Let's pan that. Let's pan this to the audience left a little bit. Go back to the original overhead. It seems like that's favoring the right, the original. Where that's sort of going. So maybe what we do, if we can make one sound out of it, I'm actually going to pan in that and then pan this over and see if I can make one rich sound. It's interesting. Do I want it to go the other way? There you go. I mean, it's like it's a wall of cymbal. There you go. And that can all be tweaked and twisted and all kinds of stuff. It's really just to announce sections. I'm going to quick listen to my room mic. It sounds like my U47. This might be harmony. I'm trying to remember where. It's probably harmony. I don't think it's here. That doesn't sound like... The harmony room is like dead and all the walls are covered in cloth. It's super dead, very 70s. So that's the basic panning done. So there's going to be some basic level stuff, but let's have a listen to all the drums just at 0 panned with those cymbals brought down. That's interesting. There's a lot of low end coming from that, like a lot of low end coming from that room mic. If you hear me pull it in and out, have a listen. I'm pointing to that because I'm thinking to myself, right, there's a lot of low end coming from that mic. Do I want to feature it? Let's have a listen. So the next question is, how does the kick mic sound? Sounds good. It sounds like there's a rattle on it. Can you hear that rattle? Hear that? So that's my only consideration. It's like, just for a second, if I just decide to, I'm moving super quick here. I mean, I'd be moving quicker if I wasn't describing, but this is just for my own edification. I want to make a decision about where I get my low end from. Do I get it from this or not? So I'm going to open just a good old bog standard REQ. This is just for my brain. What I want to try and do, like I did in the course the other day that we released on ProMix, in the Waves course, was literally like to describe what I'm thinking. Because there's in fact, all the courses I've ever watched in the history of courses are always like, and then I boosted from blah, 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 and I cut so-and-so. And it doesn't really help us, does it? Because I want to know why somebody is doing that. It's great, because the how, actually, within months, we all know. We all know the hows. We want to know, well, why did you choose to do that? So here I'm going to go. Just plonk in 60 here because I want this to be a thumpy low kick. Boost it up. I'm literally just going to boost the 60 and see how it affects what we've got. There's some of those, you hear those like double hits there. It's something that would easily be solved with the sample, obviously. But what we've got, if we're going to avoid using samples unless we have to absolutely necessarily want to, we might have to think about using a much greater amount of compression, but also maybe a gate. As part of me thinks that instead of getting 15 plugins, maybe we just reach for the omnipressor. Let's try it. Not the omnipressor, sorry. The Shep's Omni channel. There's too many omnis in the world. This might be an omni channel solution. Now, as you know with the Shep's one, it takes a couple of minutes to load up. No, it's not limited to Waves plugins at all. Just so you know, I use the REQs as like stock. To me, they're just the stock EQ and compressor I use. I don't even use the new fancy one with the Fab Filter style frequency things. I just use the bog standard ones. But I can make a point actually to help you all. If you want, I can open up the Avid one, the stock EQ. If I'm just going to do stock EQ things, then we can just do that. I'll try to make sure that this is not, you know, specific to expensive plugins. But I will say the Omni channel is, and I'm not getting any commission on this. I'll just tell Andrew I use it a lot, but it is a pretty darn good thing. The reason why I think in this instance it might be good is for a couple of things. The thump. So if you have a listen with it off. Why am I cutting out? 1 2 2. 1 2 2 2 2. Where am I coming in? Okay, no answer. Here we go. Okay, we're gonna have to turn this up. It's too. Okay, that should be better. Yeah, there's not a huge amount of low end down there to grab. So we're going to have to get a little interesting. So this is all still part of it. I know we're moving slowly because I'm explaining a lot, but this is all still part of the decision making of like, do we use that room mic to give us some low lows? That's what started this whole quest. All right, so I did a couple of things. I'm just going to experiment with using the gate. Just like I did in that other course, is I might do things and then just go, didn't work, and stop it. But that's the whole idea of doing these in real time. And the reason why I'm focusing on the drums here specifically is I want to make sure that we get that drum sound that we're looking for, regardless of using any samples. And I think that's probably going to be one of the biggest lessons here. One of the great things about this song was it's very sparing in the amount of tracks. You know, if you include all the harmonies, shakers, everything, it's slightly under 30 tracks, which for a modern recording is pretty tiny. You know, because all of these, if you take away the vocal effects, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we're up to 28 tracks. I mean, then you've got the piano MIDI is counted as, no, it's not counted as one. It's about 28 tracks, and 3 of them are cymbals. So we're at 25. We could have done this on a 24 track. Yeah. This could have been on a 24 track 2-inch machine easily. So the floor control here is what is the bleed you're hearing in. So I'm balancing between the floor and the release time. So you hear when I brought that floor down, the snare gets quieter. Have a listen. Okay, so I'm liking that. So let us, I don't think the DS is going to come in at any particular point. Let us, get this compressor up and running. That's helping with that bump, bump. I'm going to try some saturation. I'm wondering if I can just put this after the gate. Yeah, that makes more sense. So now I've moved the gate to the beginning so that I'm not just... Because the problem with putting the saturation first is it's now controlling a lot of the, a lot of the transients from the initial hits are getting squashed back in, and now there's more life to like the other hits, like the snares and stuff. So what was happening with the saturation earlier was the gate now was capturing the snares and thinking they were kick hits. Because the dynamic range between the kick and the snare was suddenly a lot closer, where it was like this and this, now it's this and this. It's dirty. Let's try on the heavy. It's not the world's greatest kick drum sound, but it sounds old. It sounds like an old kick drum, and that's part of the sound we're going for here. One of the things, and we talk about this a lot, but one of the things, when you put a video up, like if we did this live on Produce Like a Pro, the YouTube channel, we'll get the metal guys watching. Also, that doesn't sound like a good kick, because they're talking about metal. And then maybe when we're doing more metal or more heavy rock and we're like trying to push in a sample to get it to be more aggressive, like pretty much every metal mixer I've ever met that's honest, the purists will be like, that's not John Bonham, and that's the reality. What we teach here, and what we teach here is to learn everything and to do what's best for the song. And we are challenging ourselves here not to use the samples, but I like that idea. We're challenging ourselves not to use the samples so that we can go, okay, let's try and make it feel like it's a 24 track, tape, and this is old. And we're trying to get something that feels like, the period it's supposed to be mimicking. Mimicking a horrible word. Emulating the period it's supposed to be emulating. It's got a lot of tone. At the moment, I'm boosting 92 as a default. I'll come down to 60, but let's have a listen. For what we're going for, that's pretty close. Let's bypass it. So it's really close. It's close to that feeling of being in a room and just hearing that you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. And yes, we are listening in solo a lot because it's really the only way we can teach these kind of techniques. Because I sat in a room with Bob Clearmountain for a day. We spent a whole day with Bob when we did those 2 videos, the one at Apogee Studios, which I think was Academy only, yes? Eric? Are you listening?
Yes, the one at Apogee was.
Yeah, the Apogee one was an Academy only video. So if you haven't seen that, go back and check it out. We're trying to do more exclusive stuff for the Academy. But we then spent, as you know, like 2.5 hours just in the studio talking about recording. And he did at the end of us filming, after the cameras were done, I started asking him questions about his SSL, because we're having SSL discussions. And I asked him about some EQs, and he goes, I don't know. I never solo. And he didn't say that like a pretentious, like, I don't solo, like somebody on a forum might do. He's like, I just don't work in solo. So, look, when you're superhuman and you're Bob Clearmountain and that's the way you've learned how to mix, it does make sense because it's always about relationships with sounds in the mix. Of course it is. Of course it is. But when you're teaching techniques, it's really, really important to be able to show what the differences are there. And we will listen to it in context of the drums. But you can see now we've got that big, pillowy, old school sounding kick drum with the low end that we weren't sure we could have by just using the kick. But I think we can. I don't like complicated low end, meaning if I can get my kick to have a big, blooming, controlled low end and not have to have the room mic support it, then all the better. But let's do a little, see if we can get some little clickiness out of it. I mean, it's bringing up that plup, flup, flup, that little double sound, which could be anything. It could be the way that the beater is hitting it. It might be fluttering. It's probably that head, like something a little loose on it that we didn't notice at the time. And it's not going to, I'm being so careful not to touch anything in front of me. All right, I'm gonna keep it at that. I mean, to me, that's a great start. We can do some really, really basic stuff. Let's have a quick listen to the snare top. I like it. I like it. So I think obvious things for the snare is more body. If we're going to go for this kind of tubby, old school, 60s/70s, maybe the heads are a little older kind of tone, tea towel-y. You know what I mean? None of those specific things, but just that feel. We want it to feel old-fashioned. What we might end up doing is mixing the whole kit and then just swamping it all in verb. I'm being serious. We may do that. We may want it to feel like, we got this warm, fat, old drum kit in this beautiful old studio surrounded by great musicians, and there's a lot of bleed going on. But let's just get the individual elements to be the way we want them to be. So I think initially I can grab any kind of stock EQ. In fact, if I just go to Avid, just so that, because I know there was some concerns about only making it one manufacturer. I don't want to do that, obviously. So let's go. Here is the EQ 3 7-band. This is the stock Avid. So basically this just sounds like any stock EQ. I like the REQs because they're easy for me to use, but I could easily use this too. First thing I did is we just went to a high pass at 20, kind of irrelevant. One of the things we've been talking about a lot recently is boosting lower than you need to hear. The reason why we're talking about this, and the reason why a lot of the 60s and particularly 70s guys thought like this, is because they were trying to get a smooth shelf in the low end. So if we go to 100 here and boost it like this, and then soften it, this is all just visually for cues for the moment. And then we'll take it on and off. Let's do a big boost. I can go in now and go up to about 60 to get it out of the way of my kick. Keep boosting this. Keep doing this. See if I can find a sweet point. It's nice. There's not a lot to grab down there, which is unfortunate, because it's tuned a little higher. It sounds like it's probably my Supraphonic, but let's see if we can now that we've done this nice low shelf here, let's see if we can. I'll bring this back a little bit, or maybe do that. There you go. So now we're going to go down here. Typical on a Neve, and I always use Neve frequencies in my mind to work with, is 220. So let's go in and boost some 220. It's quite drastic indeed. Although again, is it drastic because it looks drastic, or is it drastic because it sounds drastic? Going to go up to here on the 6K. Do that. Cool, I like that. So next thing I'm going to do is simple. And it's interesting because I don't know if I'm going to treat the snare bottom differently. Let's have a listen. There's some floor tom bleed coming in there. I don't want to gate the snare though, because if we gate the snare, we're going to lose the... So why don't we try this just for schnitz and schniggles? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to duplicate the whole of the snare top here and try something silly. So I've done all the EQ there the same. And then just for the snare top, let's get something pretty generic. Oh, here you go. We're going to use Mac DSP's compressor bank, the most basic one. It's interesting trying random microphones. Obviously, a snare top's not a random microphone, but trying a microphone and seeing what energy I can get out of it. I love that prop-a-dump that I'm getting, but I feel like, and I'm not sold on this, I'm experimenting. I'm having fun to see what kind of elements I get. Now I'm going to grab an L1. I'm going to use the link control so the threshold and the output ceiling stay the same so the volume doesn't jump. So I brought that down, the link here, so I'm at the level of the pump and I'm not getting that extra splank unless I want it, that snap on the snare hit. So let's just call this something special. So why don't we call this our snare? I suppose the obvious thing would be to call it a snare crush, wouldn't we? I'm not going to put this into the snare group. I'm just going to, yeah, somebody's saying an omnipressor. So yes, just a snare crush, just for snitch and schniggles. And I'm enjoying that. I want to make sure if we get to a cymbal here that it's not blowing our head off with high end. Now, so that's our snare crush. It's just a fun mic. It's like a way, and I learned this early on because people would give me stuff to mix, or when I was first starting, you know, especially first starting in DAWs, I'd have like 4 mics on the drum kit or 3 mics on the drum kit. And so you started getting used to like, well, what can be my room mic? How can I make this happen? And of course, the first thing you do is you take your kick snare and your overheads and you make a decent-ish drum sound, and then you send snare to the reverb and kick to the reverb, but it always sounds like whoosh, kish, kush, kish. Doesn't sound like a whole kit. Then of course you send an amalgamation of those elements and you get sort of a reverb on the whole thing. But there's always something fun when you can take a random mic. Like I had Noah, I can't remember his name, Noah. He had a brief moment as a well-known producer. Noah, anyway, he sent me some drums, sent me a song to mix, and the drums were just He's a drummer, but between you and me, they were not recorded very well. And my room mic became the floor tom mic. There was just something about, and it's still a favorite of mine, the position of pointing from the floor tom over the drum kit. Now, when you notice I do those single mic demos, haven't done one in a little bit, we're doing some more soon, I will put the microphone over the floor tom pointing towards the kick and the snare. And it is the best mono room mic. Then, of course, Glyn Johns does that, one over the top of the snare and one in the front, and has a 3-drum mic technique. So, 3-mic drum technique, you know what I mean? So we all know that's a great place. In this instance, all of the floor tom stuff has been removed, the noise and everything. So I'm not going to do that. But this is a fun, these are fun options for us when it comes to mixing. Okay, so the overhead is kind of killing the snare. You brought it in and all the low end of the snare just went, disappeared. So that means there is some phase issues. Here they are. You can hear them and you can see them. To be honest, they're almost entirely inverted. So the first thing, we could drag back our snare, which we will do in many instances. If we go to samples down here, where is it? Oh, there it is. We go to samples. It's 124 samples ahead. So we could do that. And I'm not saying we won't. We could also simply invert the overhead's polarity, seeing as it looks almost identically out of phase. You're never going to have a perfect thing. There's no such thing as perfect phase coherence, because microphones hear in different ways. And there's reflections that can't be. So basically you've got a direct sound, and then an indirect or an accent mic is never going to be a completely repeatable, because you're going to have things in the way. But you can get near as darn it and get a great result. So if I go to, I suppose, delay and use, where is it, time adjuster here. I can just use that initially just to reverse the polarity. Let's have a listen. It's definitely bringing more low end back. If we wonder if we can get enough to get. Yeah, you can hear the body come back in. So what I'm doing is I'm playing it half speed just to illustrate, the low end. So with it reversed, the polarity reversed on the overheads. Listen to it now and the low end on both of those hits. And then what I'll do, let's go to ones that don't have cymbal bleed. And then what I'll do is I'll bypass it and you'll hear the difference. So this is half speed. Okay, so there's a difference. There's a noticeable difference. Is it absolutely hugely, massively massive? Hugely, massively massive? Not really. Let's try some time delay on individual channels. We already measured it at 124. So I'm going to get a time adjuster. So I'm just going to set the snare top at 124. And the same for the snare bottom. That might have to be differentiated with the overheads, and see how that feels. That's huge for me. Are you allowed to go and make some coffee, Meep? If you like. Sounds great, half speed. Yes, it does, Alex. Okay, so I like that. I like all of these things. And, you know, I've been saying this for years, and I think a couple of people have recently been adopting it. The 1% rule, make everything 1% better, adds up to, you take this kind of care and detail across your whole mix, across your whole recording techniques, at the end of it, everything sounds bigger and better. And a lot of the time that you spend EQing and sculpting can be solved earlier on like this. So we just solved, or improved, I should say, the phase coherence between our snare and our overheads. I'm not so worried in the overheads with the kick because I'm not going to hear it. I'm now going to grab an EQ, and I'll grab an REQ just for schnitz and sniggles, just because it's easy to illustrate. But any EQ will do the job. I'll go in REQ4. I'm getting a high pass at about 100-ish. It can be a gentle slope. Pull out some 350 so when the toms play, it isn't like cardboard boxes. I'm not going to do any high-end boosts. I'll keep my overheads nice and smooth and natural. And now, anyway, a lot of that low end has gone away from the snare. But that's actually not a bad thing. And I'm actually going to widen that a little bit. So now I've got a nice wide Q. And we're working on basically 1K and above is relatively flat. Okay, so I like where the snare's at, like where the kick's at, but I don't love the snare yet because I think it needs to go to a bus. So I'm going to use bus 2 because I might bus the kick at some stage on 1, which is more logical for me. Going to create a mono auxiliary or bus or sub or whatever you want to call it. I'm making it solo safe in Pro Tools. I don't know what that is for you in your DAW, but basically I'm going to, whenever I solo the snare through this bus, I will hear it and I don't have to solo the bus. So I'll call this snare sub. I am also going to create a snare group. So, because I like to move quickly and I don't need to, I don't want to look for elements when I need that. I'm going to turn off the drums all for a second so I can go in and out of this. Make sure to input that as bus 2. Okay, I'm tempted to have a listen without the snare bottom for a second. Do a couple of things. Let's have a listen to the snare bottom. Now, some of that rattle that we're hearing is actually coming from some of that rattle I'm hearing. Do you mind grabbing that for me? It's probably a junk call. I should give you the phone. Some of that rattle we're hearing is the kick into it. So we have to decide, do we want to get rid of some of that? Might be interesting to get rid of it. Because if we get rid of it at this early stage, just junk. Junk calls. Although Nathan Bigelow's has just hit us up. Oh, Nathan Bigelos is one of the owners and one of a super guy at Cali. We love those guys. So my question is, ladies and gentlemen, where we want to do that. So when you're saying where do you want to do what, Warren? Is this. Let's grab, I'm going to try and do this in 5 different ways. I want to do different things so everybody can learn in different ways. But let's grab the group of the kick and the snare and go and get, what's the most generic gate we have? Here. Okay. And I actually never used this gate. So this was all like, oh, wow. This is already one stage too advanced for me. I don't need half of these controls. Trust me. I like dumb. Let's get the most basic gate that we have. Because that was a compressor gate. What's the... here it is. Here's the free one with Avid. There we go. Let's grab bus 3 and send it from, you're going to guess, yes, the kick drum. So now we're sending from buzz 3, hit it in there. I'm going to go to pre-fade, meaning reason why I highlighted pre-fade is I don't want to hear the kick, but I want the kick to send to this group. And it's set as a look ahead, which is always good. And let's see what that does. What did we do? We forgot to do this. Hit the button. You know, sometimes in this world, you're an idiot, Warren. That isn't actually what I meant to do. I went to the compressor gate because I had a different idea. And then I confused myself by thinking I wanted the gate side of it. I don't. I want the compressor side of it. So, back up and pretend that didn't happen. So now, back to the bus 3, we have the compressor side, not the compressor gate side. This is what, let me just have another sip of coffee here, you know? Delicious. Okay, none of that happened. This is the beauty of live streaming. Hit the side chain on the compressor side, not the gate. Hey, now we did it. And you've seen me do this thousands of times. I'm sure there was like half of you watching going, what is Warren doing? That's not what he normally does. Yeah. So what I've done is I'm using the compressor in the snare to compress the kick hits. Oh, I love it. That's so much better. Now, we put that early in the chain, means now I can compress afterwards, and I can bring up the dum. So that didump, that's what I want, didump. I'm trying to get these two moments. Let's bring up the view on the... Let's bring up the... See, here's the two moments I'm trying to bring up. This one here and this one here. So if we've got the release time, minutes and seconds, it's reading at 189. See what I'm trying to do? I'm trying to bring up this hit and this. So we're trying to compress the kick in between. See how it's affecting the main snare. A little frustrated, not frustrated, but one of the things. So maybe if we just do the low here. Even with the shortest release time, I'm not getting that second one to do what I wanted. I mean, it's better, don't get me wrong. So what I might do now is like, it's quite aggressive, to say the least. What I might do now is just go for something super generic. Let's do something that comes free with Pro Tools, the BF 1176, the most basic compressor ever made in the history of compression. We have a theory amongst us that this is specifically designed to look like an 1176 to get people excited, because it doesn't sound anything like one. But it's actually a good generic, comes free with Pro Tools. It's getting better. Okay, I like what it's doing. I'm hearing that there's some low-end confusion going on now between the snare sub and the kick. I want the kick to be pure, and so I'm going to grab any EQ, and I'm going to put this before I do anything whatsoever. And all I'm going to do is do a high pass, about 100-ish. I'm liking that. Okay, so this is fun. Let's start throwing the overheads. Now I'm hearing that chichum, chichum, chichum. I am side chaining from the kick to get the bleed down. That's what I'm doing. Sorry if I'm confusing. See here, kick, bus 3 into the compressor here, here, and here. So we're compressing every time the kick hits as opposed to gaining. I'm not trying to get rid of the snare from the kick. That's an easy fix. I'm trying to enhance the... So I'm actually doing a little, actually quite aggressive amount of compression every time the kick plays in the snare, in the combined snare sound. Keeping the snare crush out, because quite frankly, some of the things that I've done have done what I wanted to do. So let's have a listen. If the kick and snare is playing at the same time, then you have to work around that, which means you just mute, turn off, and bypass. If it was a 4 on the floor song, this wouldn't be the solution I'd be going for, Darren. There is this song doesn't have that boom, doesn't have that boom, ka, boom. Doesn't have that groove. But if it did, then I'd work around it. And if there's one moment in the song where, you know, he does that blah blah blah, I'll just, you know, go in and write about 1 nanoseconds worth of automation, you know. So there's different horses for courses. In this situation, this isn't a disco track, it's not a problem. But if it was, then I wouldn't use this solution. I'd come up with a different one. Or I would just deal with it, because a kick and a snare playing at the same time is not as big of a problem. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to get the kick out of it. And there's very few instances that somebody's going to be playing a 4 on the floor and a swing groove at the same time. I'm not saying there's not somebody who's going to go, you know, but it's not going to be as prevalent. And even if it was, it's probably okay to make it a little bit messier. what we're trying to do here is bring up some of this articulation, which I think was lacking in the original mix. So we're going for something a little bit more exciting here. Sorry if this is very boring because we're spending a long time just on drums, but I think this is a big part of where we're going to end up with, you know. Okay, let's bring in the room. Okay, the room, the solo it. It's quite a nice balance. It could be a really good mono room mic. So let's do a couple of things. Going to grab, I don't know, whatever generic EQ we want. What have we not used yet? We haven't used a filter bank yet. I'm not calling them generic, but you know, the Mac DSP one. So we've got a high pass going. Let's make it a bit more aggressive. Get rid of the low lows of the kick. So we're high passing at 100. Turn the low pass off. Don't need to have it on. Let's go in there and pull out a little. I mean, the 400 is not a bad place to start. You know, 354. It's merely when when the floor tom section plays here. Okay, it's a little bit more balanced. I think a de-esser is never a problem on a room mic. So we can go and grab, I don't know, first thing that says DS. Here you go, whatever one this is. Oh, Mac DSP again. See on the symbol. It's probably a little too aggressive for what we need it for. It's set to 2K at the moment, so it's right on the snare. Yeah, it's soft on there, so it's not really catching that. Don't really need it. So what I did is I went about 6K-ish. We can go to 5 where it's probably quite painful and have a quick listen. Let's go back a little bit. Yeah. Maybe go to 3, where it's also absolutely painful. 7. Soft. It's soft. I don't need it. All right. Another thing that people love, and you know, I was talking to Jakia about, was lo-fi plugin. I'm a big fan of that. How that even out the highs. So let's go and grab that. We'll go to Avid. Make it quick. Go to L, lo-fi. This is a great, so this is free, so whatever saturation you want to use, have a listen. I immediately love what it's doing with the snare. Get rid of a little bit of the bloom of the kick, so maybe there's a happy medium. The distortion's bringing up the snare, but also bringing up the high end. Let's try both together. I like that. What we're going to do now is what we're going to do. We're going to grab a really, really generic reverb. So what's the free Avid one? I think Reverb 1, but they have an even more basic one than that, don't they? I don't know. We'll go for Reverb 1. It's been around forever. Let's get rid of that. insane amount of pre-delay. All right, it's interesting. Just messing with it. Just drop in whole drums, have a listen, see what we got. We can definitely use the Abbey Road chamber. I am trying at the moment to sort of like keep it cheap and cheerful. Abbey Road chamber was definitely on my mind for near the end of this, if we can't achieve this with lots of cheap and cheerfulness. Just going to throw in the bass for the heck of it. Okay, so interesting. So I just wanted to bring it all in next. I want to see how the drum sound is shaping now there's a complexity of, you know, after we've done this. It's going to make a quick, you saw me make a quick bass. I made a bass group quickly. I'm going to do the same for percussion. Just so I can bring it on and off for a second. Now what's starting to happen is the kicker's like disappeared. There's extra lows on the bass that we don't need. It's not surprising. The strings probably need some low lows cut out of them. This is why high passing is so important. Let's have a listen to DI. Definitely do a remix, Alex. You should do it. Yeah, the 12 string is my... Where is it? Where's my 12 string? Is it in storage?
Yeah,
It's in storage?
I think so.
It's my Harmony 12 string. That's me playing some bass. Okay, so we haven't finished with the drums. We have not finished with the drums. What we need to do is need to work on other instruments so we can go, okay, what do we need to do to, you know, make this all start to feel coherent? There's still a million things I need, but I want to make sure that I've got good low end from my kick. So we're going to take the DI, and you know what we're going to do. We're going to make it the main part of the sound because it's got some really nice lows. So I'm going to grab an REQ only because I know it's quick and easy. And you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to low pass it. I don't know. Let's have a listen. It's nice about 150, so let's copy that down, go to the amp, have a listen, and make that 150. And let's have a look at our phase relationship. So it looks like we need to drag back our DI by, it's got samples, 137 samples. So we'll get time adjuster. Hopefully you all understand this. I know I talk about it all the time. But I know probably 90% of the people watching here know exactly what I've done, but I've just dragged by using time adjuster rather than move the file back, you know, slightly. And then I'm messing with where all the relationships, and I don't remember where it was supposed to be, all that kind of good stuff. So now I've dragged it back. I mean, that's a massive difference. If you hear me go in and out and bypass on that, depending on what you're listening to, the low end is so much better when it's now properly in phase. So even though a lot of the low end is only coming out of the bass DI, that the very nature I just did there just really helped. Now, I'm going to put, again, you know, this is generic. Oh, that's the CL76. We don't want that. We want it, but we don't need something quite so fancy for what we're about to do. We're going to grab the BF 1176 that comes free. Like I said, doesn't sound like an 1176, but looks like one, and it's easy to use. Let's go to a couple of peak notes. Great. So just using that just for a little bit of regular evening it out. I'm actually going to copy the settings down on this one, see how it sounds on the amp now. So now, is it before? Well, it's significantly louder, but doesn't have the nice round low end. I don't like what the room's doing to the low end. I'm actually going to just go back to just reverb. I don't like I don't like it. This is going to be interesting. I was a little concerned with the room. Not that I think it's a bad mic. I mean, it's an accurate representation of the drums in a room with a mono mic. I can't remember if it was an expensive mic or not, but here it is again. Here's all the drums without it. I'll do some more kick work. So let's create a mono sub. How is everybody? Did you lose any editing? Oh, no, everything was saved as we went. No, I'm not worried about that. Plus, you know, if you don't already, I'm sure most of you have an auto-save on all the time. Although I hear Apple S all the time. So I'm going to go to a kick sub here. I'm just going to do some more aggressive EQ. I'm going to grab an REQ because it's simple and easy to use before I go into the sub, which means I'll go down pretty low. We'll go down to like 40, pull out some 350, and then you know what, I'm going to make that a 6-band EQ. Some 60. So remember, we kept bus 1 available to do this. So yep, we're going to use bus 1. Okay. Here's the thing with the saturation we had on. I was bringing out some of that stuff, so I'm gonna mess with it. I'm gonna hit this red button. For those of you who don't know, it keeps the plugin open. So if I bring up an REQ, for instance, I can now have the 2 plugins going. For those of you who use Pro Tools, I'm sure there's a version in every DAW. It's not exaggerating that quite so much. Overhead down. Going to relax that thing we did here. This is what's happening. So I'm going back. You know, we talked about the why. I'm going back and relaxing some of these ideas I had. Okay, that's killing me, that's hi-hat. Let's bring down those cymbals that are very pronounced. They're fun, but they're loud. I'm actually going to copy this exact EQ down now to the sub, the kick sub. There it is. Now, One of the things that happens is you start to hear the EQ. So I'm hearing a little bit of that kind of going on, and that gets a little annoying. So I don't think I'm going to have quite so much high mid boost. Let's throw in the bass and see if we've still got those elements working the way, or if we now have those elements working the way we want to. Okay, cymbals are definitely still, like, overheads are still affecting the drums quite heavily. Let's find out where we're hearing most of that. So bring those down dramatically. Sorry about that. So what happens when you don't have, you know, a huge amount of samples to deal with is you end up, you know, it's great, but you're going to get, once you start compressing and gating, kind of a bit of a push-pull. So we're trying to find that happy place where we're getting the close mics to do what we want them to do. You know, so we get that, you know, that essence, that parallel kind of energy coming out, you know what I mean? Why am I sending it to that? Because it might not be. I might do a trick in a minute. So I want to kick sub just in case. So let's just say, for instance, if I go here, have a listen. He's cranking like crazy. It's kind of a nice clean kick there. So for instance, what I'm thinking of is this. What I'm thinking of doing is this. Since you asked, why might I do that? So what I've done is I've created a separate kick channel. And I'm thinking what would happen if I did this. Now it's going to repeat itself, so I'm going to have to take a different one where it's exactly the same one, but so I might do that. I might take itself, because it's going to be a no better sample than the actual its kick itself, and fly it in like that. That way I'm going to have a clean, controllable kick. I could also do this just for the schnizzle of it. We could turn all that off and get, you know what I'm going to do. Sure, many of you are going, I bet I know what he's going to do. I know what he's going to do. So under other, grab our bass. all the different tricks and schnicks and schniggles here. So, sorry, I'm losing my voice a bit. Pretty crazy when it's all like that. Maybe go even lower. Creating like an artificial sub. Just want to hear what that sounds like in the full drums. Interesting. So I'm trying not to do anything outside of the realms of what we have here. So this is just the kick itself put against itself. I do this a lot when I'm trying to keep the integrity of the song. Yeah, I mean, I have the DBX 120 over here. What I'm trying to do here is find out things, find ways of doing this that are going to be, more interesting. One of the problems I've had with the R bass when done like this is it does mess with the phase. So it can be a little bit of a pain. I do love R bass. It's definitely giving me the thump that I want. Cool. So it's the poor man's quick sub thing. And I know there's a million plugins that will do this, but I also like the idea of using the kick against itself. I also have absolutely no problem because when I first started doing Pro Tools, I got hired as a Pro Tools engineer. So back in the ye olden days of like 20 years ago, when the first Pro Tools records were made, you had a guy that would sit in a cubicle, namely me, and I would edit albums. And so I learned how lots of very fast techniques. Not that I'm working fast at the moment because we're talking, and I'm not. There's actually a quick key version of what I'm doing that I could do. So I never have a problem with some kind of like edit you might have to do to solve a problem, because to me it seems like, we talked about it before, I've watched people and heard people use like 15 different DSs to get, to try and get rid of a word. And then I'm like, well, why didn't you just, you know where I'm going, go and, take out those S's and they're all like, well, you know, I was trying to find the perfect, and it's just like, sometimes the edit is just so much quicker. So what's nice here is like, we're going to get this even kick against it, and it's its own self. You know, bear in mind, for years, you know, guys like, you know, Jack and Shelley would do all kinds of tricks like this. They would take the live kick and put it back through speakers and reamp it in a room. They had thumper designs, you know, where they would trigger a thump on a kick. You know, if you heard him talk about how they rescued the live Cheap Trick album, it was like huge. It was a lot of work. And all of these kind of tricks were employed. So I think that this is quite an interesting lesson in, if we're not going to do like a live, like going to use any kind of samples, you know, what are the options here to do this? And this drum sound needs to be amazing. It needs to have everything we want it to be. But I can assure you, all of these kind of tricks were done in all kinds of different ways, even when there was 4, 8, and 16 track. They just were more difficult to do. So I don't have a problem with doing this little edit schmedit here, especially for the sake of what we're going to do. The other great thing is we could use this kick as the side chain, because it's going to be a lot more accurate, he says, going in there to move this back, because of course there's a double hit on the front. But you see, look, in the 2 minutes we've been talking, we're pretty much done. And you may have to go in and re-edit like this here and there. That's just the way it is, because there's a lot of bleed going on here, so that not all of the transients is accurate at the end here. Most of them are, but you can see occasionally they're not. But yes, this now can be, we can use this in reverse. We can use it as a sidechain, because it's a simply accurately put in kick. So there's actually an advantage to thinking this way. What we could do is we can go back. I'll show you in 1 second. I'm sure you're all quite aware of what I'm talking about. Dum-dum-dum-dum. Oh. I was like, how close are we to the end? I should have just got to the end. Okie dokie. So what I'm doing now is I'm dialing back some of that high mid there here, because I don't want to, even though I know in the track it's not really going to notice, I don't want to hear it. Okay, great. So much happier now. Because to me, it's like the kick doesn't need to be super modern and go clickety click, click, click. It just needs that thump, which sounds, of the period. And it's, it was an approximation in the recording, and now it's significantly closer. Piano's a C7 from Harmony. All right, it's gonna. So, Anita was asking earlier about the 12 string. It's a 12-string guitar. It's a Harmony, strangely enough, Harmony 12-string, and it's beautiful. I really love it. That thump's there now. I love it. That's just what I want. I need to build on that. I need to feel like there's the thump. I know lots of you are talking about using different plugins, but, and I do like all of these other ones, but ultimately what I just did there was 3 or 4 minutes work, maybe 5, because I was talking and all this kind of stuff. And now we've got a single controlled way of getting low end, which is consistent every single time. And nothing's going to miss trigger. As much as I love apps and plugins and all that stuff, I also like knowing something is done and there. That's just the way my brain works. Yeah. Okay, let's quickly do something about those floors. I think it's not going to be hard to do. Let's just grab an EQ. I'll grab the REQ again. It's my version of dumb, or I can grab the Avid one, which I'm always blanking on the name of. EQ7 band. Here we go. Grab that. Don't need it in the way of the kick, so I'm going to go about 60-ish. So what we were talking about was using this only, because it's, we get rid of that one. One of the other things we could do is do a similar trick with the snare as well, and get a sample of itself. Because I like this, but I don't like it. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to duplicate the snare sub. So now we have one that's very compressed, like we've been doing with the tricks and the tray to bring up dum-dum. So we'll call that, this is a different crush to the one we did before. So just to really confuse you. But this was the whole point. The whole point was to do this and do the whys as opposed to like, oh, the perfect mixer that does everything exactly right, because we finish with this amazing song and then we work backwards and go, and this is what I did. And you're all dwarfed thinking, oh no, how can they be like that? No, we're trying different things. So I'm now going to take that snare. I'm going to turn these two features that we put on off on the main snare sub, so we'll get a clean snare. And now I'm going to have what is the crush, which is what we created. Maybe get a little bit more aggressive. So I'm putting a little bit of the BF 76. It's more like level matching. And that cleaner snare I'm now going to use for a verb. So let's give ourselves a verb choice. It's interesting trying all these things without using the console, without using any samples, and just experimenting. And I think I'm probably going to put compression before it in this instance, just because I want it to hit a little bit more evenly. So first of all, there's 5 and 6. So let's make sure our snare verb is coming in 5 and 6. And let's grab, we can go back and grab that same generic Avid Bomb Factory one. And you'll notice I always go to the stock attack and release time at first and then adjust from there. I tend to find it works 90% of the time because it is, it's basically the default setting that everybody uses. Okay, so that's going to even it up. It will allow a little bit of attack as well to come through. Let's grab the most boring reverb, an R verb, love it, but it does the job. Wipe off the low end here, don't need too much of that. Come to something like, I don't know, just under a second. Because it's live, you're getting a little bit of that kick bleed in there as well. So if we're going to use the crush for the, maybe we have some fun with this a little bit. And after the REQ, we do grab a gate. So we're going to have now we've decided that we're going to get our gating sound from that, our movement from that crushed one. And again, we tried different ways to come up with this. That's why I was going to say the why. If I finished this and then did a breakdown, you wouldn't have known that I've gone through all of these processes to see what might work best. So let's go and grab, I can never remember the name of the Avid one because it's not called anything that makes any sense, because it's called the Dyn 3. Why don't I just say Gate Dyn 3? Anyway. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the, there's a couple of different things we could do. We could gate it from, so it's got a look ahead function here. However, that's better. I brought the attack down. Now it's coming back. Much better. Much better. What I was concerned about is like when you get to the end of the song and it's going all hell for leather, as they say. That snare was just disappearing. Now it's back with a vengeance. Because we can have the thump be the thump. The thump can be like you can, when we finish with this, you can definitely have the template. Not a problem. I'll send you. Eric will upload the template with the cables on the front. Okay, I mean, look, here's the bottom line, and it's, you know, Tom was making a joke about Warren spending a long time on the drums because they're the most important. In this instance, they kind of are, because everything else is very controlled in the recording, and we were able to get a good drum sound pretty quickly, you know, in a hybrid fashion because we were using samples. Here we're not, and we're dealing with an averagely recorded kick drum that was fun in the room that we knew we could fix using samples. But we decided not to do that. So, you know, we have the normal challenges. I think those are Logic strings, believe it or not. I think they're Logic. See, I'm happy with this direction. So we got big, low, thumpy kick. We don't need the snap. If we want to put the snap in there, what we could do is we could take a piece of the kick, like the clickiness of it, EQ it super heavily in a parallel maybe. But the problem is there's a lot of like bleed from other things in there. But it's possible if you listen to the, like maybe this. Just for schnitz and schniggles, let's try this. So I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to duplicate the sample that we put in, which is not a sample, it's its actual self, you know, its own kick. And we're going to turn off all of this. And we're just going to grab, again, we'll grab REQ because it's generic for me, or whatever. We can go for the Avid one. 7-band just for the heck of it, but I don't know if we'll need the 7-band. So that's a really quick, cheap, easy way of getting the click on it. So it's not like modern rock click, like, you know, but it's okay, and it's a quick, easy way. All we did was duplicate that thing that we did 5 minutes work on, and now we have a little bit of control. If you've watched the Bob Marlette course, he does that a lot. Whoa, lead vocal, harmonies, everything cranking. So let's do BVs here. There's a double, there's a harmony and a harmony double, so we can pan the harmony doubles, the harmonies away from it. Let's bring them all down quite dramatically and have a listen.
It's the darkness that hurts the most, and it's the lonely that she. You let them fall. It's the darkness that hurts the most.
A lot of low mids in that. She has like a real, you know, she's got a powerful voice. So.
You let them fall. It's the darkness that hurts the most, and it's the lonely that chills my bones. It's the scars that hide the truth, but it's my heart that makes me run right back to you.
I'd only make a stereo bus on a kick and snare if it was like had a sample that had an ambient reverb on it and stuff. That's you'll see me do that because it has that, but otherwise I'll just keep it mono. Because remember, it's a mono in, but a stereo out. So she has an amazing voice. Let's be honest, it's really good.
On loving now, tearing up my heart into pieces until the ground you let them fall. It's the dark.
And she's like, she was young when we did this. I don't know if you noticed, she got into the top 20? She went to Hollywood anyway, definitely. It was like top 20, top 40 of American Idol last year or the year before. For those of you that had noticed. She did well. So first thing I'm going to do is actually grab an REQ before I put, again, this is me being generic. You could use the Avid, you could use the Logic, you could use the FL Studio, the whatever. And I'm just going to roll off low-lows.
On loving now.
It's barely doing anything, but it helps, man. And then I'm going to brighten it a little bit.
On loving now, tearing up my heart into pieces until the ground you let them fall. It's the darkness that hurts.
There's some low mids in there that I don't want, but I don't know if I'm going to take them out yet. Believe it or not, you're all like going, what? Yeah. This is where me and lots of other mixers, we all have we come up against a little bit of a pushback from people inside of forums. We will always boost, and then I get people, well, the guy that trained me at college told me always to cut, and I'm just like, I don't know how to respond to that. Remember Reed Shipham, for those of you, I think Matty was there, that were in Nashville. He's like, he goes, I just want it to sound better. I don't need the philosophy. And then everybody's critical of Crystal Algae, who's just boosting highs and boosting highs and boosting highs and always compressing and boosting, and then those ugly low mids are gone because everything above in the mid range is boosted. So it's kind of, I think a lot of it comes down to, with analog equipment, it imparts such an incredible sound quite often, not always, but quite often, that you get used to it and you like the sound of what's happening. So I'm putting that EQ into the RVOX. Often I'll put the RVOX first.
Tearing up my heart into pieces, until the ground you let them fall. Tearing up my heart into pieces until...
Kind of like that already. It's aggressive. Let's have a listen.
Unloving now. Tearing up my heart into pieces until the ground you let them fall. It's the darkness that hurts the most, and it's the lonely that chills my bones. It's the scars that hide.
I mean, I'm digging this. I'm really digging this. I feel like going through a lot of this, like, some of the strings and the guitars, I might just roll off a bit more low lows, bring it up a little brighter. You're going to find a lot of that happening from now on. But ultimately what we're doing is things are starting to sit together. And this is the same conversation I feel like I've had a couple of times when we're talking about the Rick Springfield thing, where I heard and I had the big mix off against a lot of big mixers, and I got the gig. And I know I talked about this a few days ago, so I apologize, but maybe some of you just need to be reminded. I listened to the rough, and it was amazing, except the drums weren't right. They needed to be like big smacking rock. And here we are with no drum samples going, okay, we've got to have the foundation of this song right. And if we can get it to have like the big, low, old school thump and enough attack on the snare, then we won't need the samples. And we brought in the attack quite dramatically at the end there, one of the last things we did, and we worked really heavily on getting that thump. And now we seem to have something to work with. It doesn't mean that we're not going to add some more verbs. It doesn't mean that we might try, we haven't even grouped the drums in a bus. We might get to that to really bring out some energy, might do a parallel bus. All of these things may happen. But at the moment, it's starting. We've got a nice foundation on which to put everything on.
I should have never let go.
So I like it. She's still a little, like 4 to 700 is still quite crazy. And that's moving, if we had the Fab Filter EQ, we'd see it moving 4 to 700. And we could jump for a dynamic EQ, but we're not going to go there yet. We're just going to simply do what I've been talking about. And before we get into clever EQing, we're just going to simply repeat what I did, because the RVOX has got a lot of low end. Introduces, and now I'm just going to do this.
I should have never let go. A man with you, that's all I...
Little bit of essing happening there. So why don't we do this? Why don't we go right to the front? You see, I'm moving. I'm changing the plug-in order. If we weren't doing it in real time like this, it would make it look like I decided that early on. I didn't decide it early on. I'm deciding it now. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and grab a de-esser. And I don't have a favorite. And sometimes I use like 4 or 5 different ones because I feel like they all slightly work differently.
I should have never.
So let's find where that is.
I should have never.
Go back a little bit longer. So at 3K there, it's a good 10 dB difference.
I should have never let go. I should have never let go. I should have never let go.
We might have to use a couple.
I should have never let go. You were one. I should have never let go.
There's also a part of it, like a 1K-ish kind of thing. But we're putting it at the front. So let's have a listen.
You were one. I should have never let go. I'm with you, that's all I know. You turn your back on loving now, tearing up my heart.
It's nice though, because where it grabbed it there was actually quite pleasing. Because
On loving now, on loving now, on loving now, on loving now.
well, it's smoothing it and rounding it out. So meaning, because we're grabbing it early, we can now add brightness to it, which is what we've been doing here. We can grab brightness to it, add brightness to it, and that will allow the vocal to be more even. I don't think you can ever DS too much, but you can DS badly. You know, you can use de-essing to control, you know, it's basically a dynamic EQ. It's a single band, multi-band, a dynamic EQ.
On loving now, tearing up.
We never talked about dynamic EQs 20 years ago. Now with the technology, we're getting more and more into that. So let's go and find some of the worst offenders. This is where there you go. So now we're up to like just under 6K and we're only getting that. It's contained earlier on, but you see. So that's much sweeter. So now we're just controlling the offending.
And it's the skies that hide the truth, but it's my heart that makes me run right back to you.
Okay, let's try in context.
Can't forget our past love, can't live regretting it all. Our mistakes weren't worth making. I couldn't help myself in love, I've been bound to fall. It's the darkness that hurts the most. It's the lonely that chills my bones. And it's the skies that hide the truth, but it's my heart that makes me run right back to you. Should've never let go.
You've got all of these. These are some of my Lexicon effects that I printed. Quick, easy effects. We can try other stuff as well, but they're there for your listening pleasure.
Can't forget our past love, can't live regretting it all. Our mistakes weren't worth making. chills my bones, and it's the scars that hide the truth, but it's my heart that makes me run right back to you. You were one I should have never let go. A memory of you, that's all I know. Turn your back on loving now, tearing up my heart into pieces until the ground you let them fall. It's the darkness that hurts the most, and it's the lonely that chills my bones. It's the scars that hide the truth, but it's my heart that makes me run right back to you. I know it's wrong to want you after all you've put me through. It's the darkness that hurts the most, and it's the lonely that chills my bones. It's the sky, the truth, but it's my heart that makes me run right back to you.
It's probably a Pultec EQ. That's what I use on the console. So let's go and grab. I don't know if you guys and girls have a Pultec of. There's a million different manufacturers of them. Waves, of course, is. Excuse me. Which is it? They have the JJP one. Oh, the Puigtec, which is actually the United ones for those of you that are in the know. It's nice how the 3K hugely boost. Although remember, 0 to 10 on a Pultec is not 10 dB. I think 3 is 1 dB or just under. Or yeah, it's about 1.25 or something like that. Sorry, and then 6 is about 3, and you might if you're lucky get 6 or 7 dB. So we're probably about 3 or 4 dB at 3K. But I love what it's doing to that ambience and the way the piano. Listen to the, I mean, you can hear the whole thing being obviously mid-rangier and brighter, but listen to the left-hand side of the piano. It's just such a beautiful, you hear that, you hear like the board rattling. This piano is the piano, you know, the famous C7 that we have, you know, that did Someone Like You.
Can't forget our past love. Can't live regretting it all.
am going to high pass though. Not that there's much going on in piano that's super, super low, but I just don't need it, don't want it. And I'm just going to, you know, out of habit and just good common sense, I'm going to bypass. High pass, sorry.
Can't forget.
The thing is, I can automate that as well. So when the drums come in, maybe I can go a little higher on the high pass.
It's the darkness that hurts the most.
Very tempted to copy this Puig Tech down. Don't use much, but it's nice. Love what it's doing on the air on those. Zzz, actually hearing that. Don't worry, Anita. Pultec do make a compressor as well. It's not as well known, but they made one. I believe Steve Jackson has either going to or has brought out the Pultec compressor. Love what it's doing for the 3K is bringing out the sound of the you know, the bow on the string. That's absolutely fantastic. It's really this is going to probably seem crazy, but I'm really digging the bass. I'm going to send that. First of all, I'm going to duplicate the bass amp like so, and I'm going to make the bass amp. I'm going to call it SAT for saturation, but we're not going to put that particular thing in there. And you see, I'm moving around backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. We're not just sticking on the vocal. We're not just sticking on the drums. We're just listening, bringing in things, hearing relationships between everything. Hopefully that is coming across. I'm going to grab a Sans amp, which does come free with Pro Tools. I'm sure whatever DAW you have also has its own free distortion. I just want a bit of danger. I don't want it to be quite so safe. There's a little bit of compression on the vocal going in. I mean, that's pretty standard, especially with a vocalist of this amount of dynamic range. I mean, I think she was like 16, 17?
14, I think.
Say again?
14, I think.
Really? I thought she was like 21 now. It's about 4 years.
She's like 20 now, and I think
Oh, she was like 14 when she did this. So super dynamic, so definitely some compression going in. But I never EQ anything on the vocals. So if there was some compression, that would be it. But certainly you don't really see any areas where it's like a square wave. So yeah, there's some compression, but I I would not characterize that as processing. I think that sort of implies that like all kinds of magic went on and multiple bands of EQ and compression and it's processed. No, it's just it may have had some light compression on her going on the way in because she didn't have very good mic technique. That's not true. She had amazing mic technique for somebody who's 14, but not the mic technique of somebody like Steven Tyler, who's going to be like, hey, and he's going to come in close and sing like this and be like that, and then go like that. You know, Steven's like working the microphone like nobody's business. But no, she didn't have that kind of technique. So there was a little bit of compression going in, but still massively dynamic. But you know, when you're using a nice mic with an amazing singer, you've got a lot more to work with. Okay. Is it an issue for you, B-side? Sorry, I'm trying to understand the question. So basically, yeah, I mean, I don't sort of hear them as being overly compressed. It's just controlling the dynamic range on the way in and also using some of the characteristics. So if you have something like an 1176, it helps to give it like a little bit of extra grit. You know, there's something about like when I use compression, I might go 160 into an 1176. Because they have two very different characteristics. The 160 will kind of like bring out some of the body, really preserves the low end, and 1176 adds some crunch. So those two in series, hitting ever so lightly, can just give you more of what you want, you know. Okay, great. So, Eric, do we have a drive open? Because I want to steal some settings. Do we have any of our standard stuff up here? I mean, we should have our template on the drive anyway, yes? On the desktop. A lot of what's going to happen now is going to be sort of more automation, like kind of, you know, getting, you know what I mean, just kind of getting in there and you know, pushing the reverbs that we have. And because quite often when I'm tracking, especially not in this room, because Harmony's a tiny little drum room and as you can tell, not exactly the greatest drum room ever, but we've managed to make it work. It's not going to win any awards, but it works for what we're doing. So is the template on here? I can just do this.
I'll have to find it because I did have one deep in the arms of Texas. I mean, all I want to do is bring out the MoFo quickly and just go to the generic setting. Yeah. So, if you go to Drive 5.
Drive 5. Okay.
You'll be able to pull it up in one of those sessions.
Oh, let's bring in something from Ace Frehley. Space Invader. Good old Ace. What I'm doing is I'm trying to cut down on some time, and I can tell you what I did afterwards. Vocal. Okay, so we have a distort. We don't need. Well, we can bring that in. We'll bring that in. We'll bring that in. We don't need to bring in the reverbs and delays yet, or maybe we did. I'm just trying to do some quick stuff here. Wow. Okay. Maybe more than we'll ever need, but there it is. We don't need to match tracks.
And then make sure you go to choose. Also, you don't bring in the clips as well. Clips and media, uncheck that.
An alternative playlist. Well, we don't. None of it actually should be, because these are only auxiliaries. Shouldn't actually be pertinent.
Oh yeah, you're right. Sorry.
It's not. It's pertinent. Okay. So it looks like a couple of things. Looks like this is an older version of Echo Boy. Doesn't matter. What I'm doing is I'm just trying to get from A to B a little quicker. So we're not here for 4.5 hours. Well, we are. We've been here for nearly 3. Wow. God bless it. Okay, so we can get rid of some of this stuff. So what I'm doing is the main reason why I brought this in, quite frankly, is not here. That is hilarious. Okay. Where's the whisper track? Do we not use it on him? The whole reason why I brought it in was for that.
Yeah.
I don't think there's enough drums on this song. Where is the whisper? This is what you get for watching me in real time.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it.
It's not there. Of all the singers we've ever worked with, he's the one that would need it. Maybe we just didn't work on this one song, or it wasn't necessary. Okay, let's go to Alex. Wasting Away. There definitely has a whisper track on that. There it is. Okay, bring that in. This is really the main thing I wanted to bring in. Okay, so for those of you that don't know the whisper track, I'm going to show it. So we're going to just turn off all this schnizzle here for the time being, hide and make inactive, and just pretend that never happened. But once again, we're in real time. Let's output that on 1 and 2. So, and the inputs bus 123. So we'll just go to 123 here, and we'll turn it up. So this is just something I think that would be really nice for her. So we're sending out of the track, and we've got a Mo folder here. Now, if I put it in pre-fade, you'll be able to hear what it's doing. As I said to you earlier, because I think AJ was asking about it, we'll give you this session afterwards, so you can divulge and rip apart and watch the thing and hear me getting annoyed at Eric because the cables were at the front. You can experience all of that again.
Can't live regretting it all.
So I run a de-esser on it so it's controlled, and if I don't put a de-esser on it, what I find happens on that track is words like kind of get overly done, and so it's more even, but it does mean breaths get it as well, so you can use a gate on it as well. I've seen people use gates.
Can't forget our past love. Can't live regretting it all. Our mistakes weren't worth the making. I couldn't help myself in love. I've been bound to fall. It's the darkness that hurts the most.
I feel like I just want to stick something really generic on the end on the vocal, just another compressor. And for me, generic would be an R comp. I mean, it's just that those are my sort of go-to compressors. It doesn't mean you can't use a stock, because these are now like legacy products for Waves. I think you can probably buy the whole bundle for 49 cents.
Can't forget our past love. Can't live regretting it all. I should have never let go. A man with you, that's all I know. It's in your bag.
Okay, I'm going to move back. So I'm not finished with that, but I am still in the middle of trying out a couple of different ideas. And this is what I said, this is the way my mind works. I'm trying an idea, I'm putting it together. Now, we've added that bass stuff, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to group that bass now. We'll just create bus 7 and take those moments and call it a bass sub. And you can call it, you can call it a subgroup, you can call it an auxiliary, you can call it a bus, whatever you like. And we'll go in And I don't know, again, we can do something generic, EQ. That's crazy because we're in pre-fade there. I'll take that off. Hey now, why are we hearing that in pre-fade? Is 123 being used for something else? Or do we have a classic case of... Oh, we don't need that. My fault. That's the wonders of working in real time. Is it's a mono auxiliary and I just made a stereo. You can see that we all make mistakes. So bass, bass, bass. Every time I do it, I'll do it, call it with a different name. See, I had to mute it and unmute it to tell it not to send a signal there. God bless. God bless DAWs. I like that bass sound. It's obnoxious. Let's go. I'm not going too much. I mean, I heard you guys talking about Soothe and all these other fancy plugins. I mean, they're all great, and we're going to do some stuff with Oak Sound. They're a nice company, and we've been talking to them. And we will do some stuff, and I think it's really, really great. But I tend to, you'll find like mastering engineers think the same way, not go for these kind of really wonderful, incredible plugins until you've got a mix. Because there tends to be a lot of like overwork done. And, you know, I think that's worth remembering. So I'm going down to about 60, gentle slope. Now I'm going to bring in the R bass, which is a go-to. I'll just be honest, it is. I'm a big 3K on bass, 3-4K, but usually 3K, so we can grab another EQ. Again, anything generic, whatever you feel is generic. Don't need anything above it. Probably should swap that REQ out for a 4-band. That would make sense. That way, if I make it here, do this, I can take this. Because now I booted the R bass, I'm also going to like just control the low lows. Because we're still on that thump to only be from the kick drum, so that's how it feels like now. Okay, so this is a common thing with the kick drum, is all of that low boost, all of that fun stuff we were doing, adding the snap, adding the this, adding the that. Now we've got a bit of a build up in a 110 kind of region. It looks like we could do. It's fine to go here. Okay, so actually using every band of that EQ there, I believe, or maybe not. Maybe we can use this spare one here. So what I'm going to do, we got a couple, is I'm going to do an 80 cut here. So see what I'm doing here? An 80 cut, so we're not boosting there. And then this other one that's open, I'm going to do a 110 cut here. I might just widen these up a little bit so it's nice. See what's going on there. That should help our bass fill in that region. See what I mean by incremental? How I'm moving between things. I'm not just getting the drum sound and the bass sound. I'm moving backwards and forwards and just like creating the relationship between them all the time. I have no problem with putting an L1 on that. I just felt like I wanted it to come up and I wasn't going to sit there like trying to rebalance like every other hit and put compression on. I'm just slapping an L1 in the end. And I think that that's going to solve what I'm hearing between the bass and the kick. See, now I feel like we're in that sort of zone where, like, you know, the bass needs to be automated, you know, so we can go in here. Let's move, like, I'm starting to think, well, like, I like that, but. That last note come down more. See, I'm going to start doing this as I go, like little automation points, things I know that are already bugging me. Now this single hit tambourine is supposed to be Motown, so it's like smashed. I think that was put through a Neve, too loud, too distorted, etc., etc. However, let's go grab a lo-fi. So good old-fashioned cheap and cheerful comes free with Pro Tools. Yeah, there's no like on off on that. It's either too much or it doesn't work at all. So get rid of that idea. Let's grab. It's too short. It's far too short. Okay, so last but no means least on all of these different ideas, as you can see where we're going, is L1ing it. Okay, so now we have that, because it's supposed to be a Motown. Let's go and grab. I don't want to get anything fancy yet, because now we've been talking about fancy reverbs like Oh no, I mean, if we were relying on templates and I wasn't talking, I just don't know if I could. Sorry to B-side if it's not clear. I know you started late. So we're not using any templates here. And so, you know, because most people, I can mix, we have done, we've mixed 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 songs in a day. Albums, I wouldn't say in a day, but, you know, EPs and stuff. We can go to our template from a mixing hybrid through the console. However, the whole idea of doing this as a live stream is, first of all, we're doing it at like quarter speed because we're talking about everything all the time. But we're doing this specifically so that we can show you the why, as opposed to like the how, because the how is the difficult. The how is the easy thing, because once you've done it, you can go back and go, this is what I did. But it's part of like going, well, these are all the different things that we can do. Yeah, it's for me is you know, especially because we've decided not to use any drum samples and create this using the original recording. So we've done some fun stuff. Yeah. I come up with some strange parts, I really do. We are going to have to stop for some lunch in a minute. I just want to make sure that when we leave off, we're really happy with what we've got. So these are the DIs, not the amps. You deleted the amp mics, but left the DIs?
No, there were two guitars I noticed that I couldn't find the DI tracks.
No, these are the DI tracks.
Oh.
You deleted the amp tracks, these are the DI tracks. Okay, well, that makes it interesting. Let's go and grab a, what do we have? Guitar amp, that's cheap and cheerful. did Jim Scott say the last thing you work on is loudest in the mix? Okay, so the is okay. I'm just gonna do some generic stuff to this. Gonna bust these two together. Stereo auxiliary. Make it 9 and 10. And call this guitar sub. And let's grab just a generic EQ across both of them. I don't need to spend too much detail on each individual one. Don't need anything really that low. Grab some generic E kind of compression. Again, we could do what's normal, and we can go back to 1176. Bob. Cool, that's relatively even. Actually going to duplicate that group, and I'll keep the EQ on. Maybe I'll move the compressor up here for a second. Grab a verb. Doodle-doodle-doo. Get rid of the low lows. Go down to a shortish time. Now I'm going to reverse. So the left is the right and the right is the left, meaning the left-hand guitar is going to have reverb in the right, and the right-hand guitar is going to have reverb in the left. What's interesting, I'm actually bringing up the reverb above the other guitar, the live guitar. And I like that because then I can feature the 12 string as the main part. You understand what I mean? So I'm using the reverb of the electric guitars, the lovely DIs. I'm using those. And I'm going to make the sparkle come out of the 12 string. So we'll call this 12 ST subgroup. Okay, and we can have some fun with that. You know, let's grab, you know what, let's grab, we'll just do it simple. So again, this is what I'd always do. Grab a basic EQ. I'm going to do REQ4. Not much going on below there. I was just getting a de-esser just in case there were some spikes. But there's not. So no need for that. Put on the 1176 again. Again, comes free. I'm making that one sound. I'm trying to get that to be Okay, it's far too dominant now. The electric guitar is like, whoa, and the reverb and everything. As I said, Jim Scott always says, loudest thing you mixed, loudest thing you're working on is the loudest thing in the mix. Last thing you're working on is the loudest in the mix. And I'm already too tired of the excuse me, of the guitar sound. I think it needs to be driven a little bit heavier. There you go. It's adding energy now. I think it was too clean, too polite. Great. Okay, well, we're going to go for lunch. I'm going to have some lunch. We're super close. Most of this is going to be automation from now on. There's been no automation done really especially on reverbs and delays on the vocals. There's no EQ applied yet to harmonies. Harmonies are pan hard left and right. Not sure if I want to keep them like that. I might narrow them. So I do like that little extra grit on the guitar there. I think it's making it a bit more like, well, what happened? You know, a little edge. No, we can't. The only problem with doing the live streams is you can't go back to the live stream. So we'll have a live stream of a live stream. We'll bring this back up and work on it next week for the Academy only.
Can't forget.
Definitely B-side. For me, you've always got to be listening to all the other elements all the time. If you create a drum sound and then a bass sound and a guitar sound, you tie yourself into all kinds of knots. And I think when people are talking about moving fast, they mean that. They mean not spending too long. Now, we did have to spend a long time on the drums comparatively because we limited ourselves to not using any kind of samples. And the kick didn't have any real low lows. And we didn't have any fancy sub plugins. So we just did things to sort of like get the result we want. And you're very welcome, Hit the Road Music Studio. Thanks, Shiner Sound Studio. Shiner Sound Studio. Are you related to Scott? Are you Scott?
It's the lonely that chills my bones, and it's the scars that hide the.
We're going to do a lot more live streams. It's interesting, you know. There's sort of a give and take, but you know, I think, to be quite blunt, we just have to make sure that everything is like up and running properly before we get started. Live streams could be a bit embarrassing when, you know, cables are out the front and things get disconnected and stuff like that, and we start late. So I don't know what Scott calls his studio, so that's the reason why I was asking.
Let go. I'm with you. That's all I know. It's on your back. My heart in a pieces until the ground you let them fall. It's the darkness that hurts the most, and it's the lonely that chills my bones. It's the scars that hide the truth.
Yeah, I think the other thing about the live streams is they're really good inside. inside of the academy. They can go longer. There can be a few more mistakes. We can all make a joke about Eric's hair and misplugging things in and stuff like that. And it's real. Sorry, Eric. We love you and your hair.
And it's the lonely that chills my bones. It's the scars that...
Oh, you're in an area called Shiner, Texas. Oh, I thought, yeah, I have a good friend called Scott Shiner, and I didn't know, yeah.
It's the darkness that hurts the most. And it's the lonely that chills my bones.
I don't know what is for lunch, but I'm sure I'm going to have some in a minute.
It's the darkness that hurts the most. And it's the lonely.
Yep, I've got lots of questions still. I still not happy with this and that and the other, but we're going to take a break. We'll come back next week. I won't listen to it till then, so I'll come back with fresh ears. And the wires are going to be in the back. Yes, Norman and Prost. I don't know how you pronounce it, but Prost, I believe, is German. Wonderful. Absolutely amazing. I don't know what for lunch is, but we're going to have lunch. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing. Thanks for bearing with us for the last nearly 3.5 hours. Yeah, it's a little slower when you're explaining everything, but I think it's more interesting. You know, this is probably about an hour and a half to 2 hours work normally, I think, without the, you know, with the stopping and explaining. And plus we lost that 10 or 15, well, maybe even 20 minutes while we were copying the files over to the thing. So yeah, maybe it's about an hour and a half's worth of work. But I think that, you know, a song like this, it deserves, if you're not going to work with samples, coming backwards and forwards and working, you know, between multiple things. Thank you, everybody. It's been really a lot of fun, and I look forward to doing more of these. I think it's a good idea to do them in the box, limit the stuff, work. We could do them where we only use a certain amount of plugins, or we only use a certain type of plugin. We could have all kinds of fun, different limitations, and really push the boundaries. I encourage you all, as ever, to mix the song, and then I love it when you do your own mix videos for other people. It will always stay only in the Academy. Nobody else will see them. So if you want to do that, that'd be great. You do a mix and then do a breakdown of how you did it. I mean, it's huge. That's what's so fantastic about this place, is that we're all collaborating and sharing. I have a lot of guys that, let's be blunt, a lot of guys that do what we do. And they're all like, "Hey, Warren, man, you just put too many hours in it, bro. Bro, you know what I mean? You just gotta like passive income, bro. You know what I mean? Just, you know how many people have told me that? And I know a lot of you have been in other academies. It's just like, this is, I don't want to I'll get on my soapbox here, but this is the reason why we do it, so we can communicate and have a community. I even have people that are YouTubers that are like massive YouTubers, and they're like, "Dude, why do you go and like, you know, why do you go and respond to people? And why do you like, you don't need to do that. It takes up so many hours, you know." And it's like, you know, have you read the 4-hour work week, bro? I mean, like, I didn't like, I am on the soapbox. I didn't pick up the guitar to be Brian May or Jeff Beck. Brian May definitely first, then Jeff Beck and George Harrison and Tony Iommi. You know, I didn't pick it up so I could figure out how to play guitar for 4 hours a week and tour the world, but only have to work 4 hours a week. You know, it's. I was talking about this with Glenn. You know, Glenn who can definitely, and I was like, "Where's the music gone? Where's the music gone?" It's just like every single freaking video and everything is just like, you know, pay now, $14.99. It's just like, no, this is music. So that's the reason why we do this. That's the reason why on a Saturday we're spending 3.5 hours going through stuff, because it's really all about community and collaboration. And to be honest, I was, you know, a little spotty, geeky, bookish kid who played guitar in his bedroom. And I always just wanted to have friends that did music and stuff. So, hey, be my friends. You all rock. Thank you ever so much. See you next week. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing.